not panic. This is the answering machine for Charnel House at 9245670. When the emergency is over, you will hear a beep. You may then leave a message for up to 4 minutes. Please give the machine 1 full second after the beep before you begin. Thank you.
Obligatory Tit Time. It was a bright day in late spring in the 21st century as Oscar and his friend Eddie walked along the sidewalk of a city which we may choose to believe was far more tranquil, clean, and well-ordered than the ones we know today. Every species of animal, bird, and reptile that we have in the world today inhabited the garden, said Oscar. No doubt many of the animals ate grass and herbs. The rest depended on the fruit of trees for their food. So you see, the garden must have contained a great number of trees. I wouldn't even make a guess at how many. Did Adam have a job while in the garden? Eddie asked. Yes, indeed, Eddie. Adam had a heavy job on his hands. He had to keep the garden under control and looking pretty. Everything grew so fast that if he didn't keep it under control, the garden would soon be an impenetrable jungle. But where did Adam get his saws, axes, pruning shears, shovels, hoes, and other tools that he would need to do the job? Eddie asked. Ah, Eddie, those tools would have been of little value to Adam. When he wanted a limb cut off, a half-dozen rats could quickly gnaw it off. When he wanted a tree pulled up, he engaged an elephant for the job. Moles and gophers would be glad to do his plowing for him. Horses make good lawn mowers. Cows, sheep, goats, and so on were needed to keep down vegetation. Apes could be useful for a great many jobs requiring hands. Beavers could cut down trees. No doubt every animal had a useful kind of work it could do. Wasn't the increase in animal life quite a problem to Adam? Eddie, things were different in the garden from what they are in our world today. The only logical conclusion is that there was no increase in animal life in the garden. Adam and Eve were not subject to death, so obviously the animals were not either. In the garden, increase and death pertained only to vegetable life. If rabbits, cats, mice, rats, dogs, and so on had increased in the garden as they do today, in the 100 years that Adam and Eve lived there, yes, long before the 100 years were up, the garden would have been sadly overrun by these creatures. Suddenly the sound of an air raid siren pierced the air, but neither Oscar nor Eddie nor anyone else on the street showed any sign of alarm. It's 3 o'clock, said Oscar, looking at his watch. Let's go to the Cocoon this time, said Eddie. I like their seats much better than those little places in the malls. Red-suited officers were now standing on the sidewalks, 1 or 2 to a block, calmly directing pedestrians to the nearest facility. Each such facility was marked with a yellow and black sign reading OTT, OCT facility, and indicating the capacity. People walked into shopping malls, theaters, churches, public buildings, and various places, small or large. All traffic stopped in the streets as people shut off their motors, got out, left their vehicles, and joined the influx to the nearest OTT, OCT facility. Right this way, please, right this way, please, repeated a smiling officer standing outside the Lowe's Cocoon Theater, whose capacity was nearly 1,000. Oscar took Eddie's elbow politely and steered her past the door. No payment or tickets were required. They soon found themselves seated in the comfortable seats of the fine old theater, a relic from the year 2000. Within a short time, the entire theater was filled, even the balcony. The audience consisted of people of all ages, most of them couples. There were special sections for children and for adults without partners. A reasonable number of latecomers were permitted to stand in the rear and in the side aisles. When the lights went out, the theater was totally dark for a second before the film began. There was a widespread rustling of clothing. Oscar unzipped his fly, and Eddie unbuttoned her blouse and undid her bra. She wore no panties. Panties had gone out of style ages before. The film was a bit scratched from frequent use, but the picture was still bright and the color vivid. The title was Tits Tied Up in the Jungle, starring Inga, the famous sex queen with the 67-inch bust, also starring Rod Somebody and Lowell Somebody. Inga was naked and bound to a stake inside a native hut as a black native squeezed her enormous tits. A white man was also present, a sort of jungle trader, very seedy looking. Evidently he had just sold the girl to the native's tribe. He was now jerking himself maniacally as he watched the black native squeezing, scratching, licking, biting, and drooling over the captive girl's tits. The camera covered the action from all possible angles, including extreme close-ups. The soundtrack consisted of a drum beat that gradually increased in volume, and the squeals of pain from the girl, along with such dramatic lines as, "Oh no, don't bite my big tits," and "Oh no, don't scratch my big tits." The native grunted savagely, as black natives are supposed to, and the perverted white trader made guttural noises appropriate to the occasion. Eddie had greased Oscar's prick with Vaseline, still a big seller in the 21st century, and was stroking it as he felt her tits and fingered her pussy. The armrests of the seats were collapsible for the convenience of couples. Throughout the theater, heavy breathing and moaning were building to a crescendo as wet, slippery genitals were squeezed and caressed. Indeed, a capacity cocoon at OTT was a breathtaking experience. Within minutes, early comers swooned with orgasm, and here and there the rest came, like kernels of corn popping randomly, until a state of nearly universal bliss was achieved. Outside, a siren sounded, and films everywhere came to an abrupt end. The interval between sirens had been 35 minutes. The lights went on, and all but a few desperate souls were decently done up again and smiling with satisfaction. The bright sunshine hurt their eyes for a moment as Oscar and Eddie left the cocoon and paused momentarily on the sidewalk. "Well, Oscar, I must be getting back," said Eddie, glancing at her watch. "Very well, Eddie," he replied, "but may I call for you this evening for OCT, at your building, perhaps?" "Of course," she said, smiling. "Then afterwards I should like to learn more about your theories regarding biblical times." "By all means. I'll be delving into the nature of pre-Adamic creatures, the employment by Noah of animal labor, the condition of absolute zero which preceded the deluge, and why God tore up the earth into the pieces we now call continents. All topics of discussion which I'm sure you'll find fascinating and provocative indeed."
É o telefone das boas novas, o estudo bíblico com a série Respostas de Deus às perguntas dos homens. Estamos estudando o tema Santidade.
Jesus Christ, 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 what a king, what a king. Jesus Christ, what a thing, what a thing. He could fly a kite, he could row a boat, he could drive a truck, he could dance and sing, he could take a little fish and make it go very far, he could take a little bread and make it go very far, he wore designer jeans and he played the guitar, he could take a little dope and make it go very far, he could raise the dead, he could walk on the sea, he could cash his checks without any ID. Jesus Christ, what a guy, what a guy. Jesus Christ, what a fly, what a fly. He could spin a tail, he could catch a fish, he could whip young girls till he made them cry. He turned water into wine 'cause he thought it tasted fine, and he liked to get drunk and take off his clothes. Yes, he liked to get drunk and take off his clothes. Jesus Christ, what a boy, what a boy. Jesus Christ, what a joy, what a joy. He could ride a chopper, he could punch a scribe, he could spin a nun on his 8-inch toy, and he buggered the apostles when nobody was looking, and he buggered sheep and goats when nobody was looking, and he touched little boys when nobody was looking, and he pissed in the soup when nobody was looking. Thanks to Jesus Christ, we have a Christmas tree. Thanks to Jesus Christ, we have a shopping spree. Thanks to Jesus Christ, we have an Easter parade. Thanks to Jesus Christ, we had the Great Crusades. Jesus Christ, he was a big bad Jew. He could box and wrestle, and he loved kung fu. Jesus Christ, he was a snappy dresser. He could heal the sick. He was a real good blesser. Oh, he's good for gout and syphilis and rabies, and he's fine for croup, malaria, and scabies, and he's good for making babies, and all kinds of inflammation, and insanity, and pleurisy, and premature ejaculation. Jesus Jesus Christ, what a brick, what a brick. Jesus Christ, what a dick, what a dick. He could pan 4 quarters, he could lift a wallet, he could boost a record, he could turn a trick. Oh, he wandered in the wilderness for 40 days and nights, and he didn't change his underwear for 40 days and nights, and took all his meals at Burger King for 40 days and nights, and played Elvis on his Walkman for 40 days and nights. Now, when you hear a church bell, you think of Jesus Christ, and when you watch The Exorcist, you think of Jesus Christ. Or PTL and Tammy Faye, the Mormons and the IRA, the stupid masses as they kneel, and John Paul in his Popemobile, and ragneck segregationists and anti-abortionists, inquisitions, persecutions, holy wars, and executions, Bible-thumping killjoys, and newfie priests and choir boys, and seraphim and cherubim, and Sunday school and mortal sin, and burning books and censor boards, and missionaries at your door, and death and doom and Armageddon, punishment for which we're heading, Calvinists and terrorists and kooks and fundamentalists, and murderers and pious fakes, and witches burning at the stake, neurosis and psychosis, and the Pentateuch of Moses, and fear and guilt and superstition, paranoia, circumcision, heretics upon the racks, and idiots who hand you tracts, hallucinating clowns and jerks, and lunatics who go berserk, and visionaries who act strangely, Oral Roberts, Ernest Ainsley, hellfire and damnation too. They make you think of you-know-who. It's only fitting that you call his name for mishaps large or small, like miss the movie, miss your exit, someone steals your car and wrecks it, lose your girlfriend or your job, get beaten by a drunken mob, crack a filling, flunk a test, spill some ketchup on your vest, or likewise when you stub your toes, smash your thumb or bump your nose, slip on ice and break your ass, or lose your keychain and your cash, get rejected or convicted or ejected or evicted, end up on a crashing plane or suffer tumors in the brain. So when you suffer any pain, be sure to take his name in vain. Just lift your head up to the sky and say, Jesus Christ!